You've seen players score goals that made history, but what about the moments that made them cry? Moments that silenced stadiums? From tragedies that shook the entire sport? These are the moments that left even the hardest players broken, and the world watching in disbelief. It started with a young girl named Millie Rose. She was a diehard Manchester City fan, bright, full of life, and absolutely adored Phil Foden. Even when battling serious illness, she never stopped supporting her team, never stopped smiling. Foden had heard about her story through her family and decided to reach out. He didn't make it a PR moment or a headline. He simply promised Millie something special, that his next goal would be dedicated to her.
Comes in, keeps on coming in, keeps on coming. That is a brilliant goal. One of the best of the season. Phil Foden drifted in from the right-hand side.
Instead of his usual celebration, he stopped, smiled, and made a small heart gesture with his hands, one he had promised Millie. When she passed away not long after, that moment became something eternal. It wasn't just about football anymore. It was about connection, love, and the quiet power of keeping your word. October 27th, 2018, Leicester City had just finished their match against West Ham. Fans were leaving the stadium when the sound of rotors filled the air. Their club owner, Vichai, was boarding his helicopter, something he did after almost every home game. But that night, something went terribly wrong. Moments after takeoff, the helicopter lost control and crashed just outside the King Power Stadium. There were no survivors. The news spread instantly.
The BBC has been told the owner of Leicester City Football Club was on board the helicopter that crashed and burst into flames just minutes after taking off from the King Power Stadium last night.
Disbelief, shock, and grief rippled through the football world. Vichai wasn't just an owner, he was family. The man who took Leicester from dreamers to Premier League champions. When Leicester returned to play, the atmosphere was unlike anything football had ever seen. Fans held candles, players wept, and every chant carried the weight of gratitude. Because what Vichai left behind wasn't just a football legacy, it was a legacy of love, loyalty, and unity. In 2021, football witnessed a goodbye no one was ready for. Lionel Messi, the man who had spent over 2 decades at Barcelona, was leaving the club. The press conference felt surreal. You could see it in his eyes. The weight of 20 years, the memories, the joy, the heartbreak. As he tried to hold back tears, he grabbed a simple white tissue and wiped his face. It was a small human gesture, but it symbolized the end of an era. That same tissue, unbelievably, ended up on auction online, with bids reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars. A bizarre reflection of how powerful one moment of emotion can become. For Jack Grealish, the spotlight has always been bright, sometimes too bright. But behind the headlines and the celebrity image, there's a story of loss few fans know. One night during his time at Aston Villa, Grealish's home was robbed while his family was inside. The intruders took jewelry, valuables, even his sense of safety. But what hurt most wasn't the stolen things. It was the fear that his loved ones could have been hurt. Grealish rarely spoke about it publicly. He just returned to training, carrying that silent pain on his shoulders. Long before he was one of the world's best midfielders, Kevin De Bruyne was just a quiet boy from Belgium, a kid who didn't fit in. When he was 12, his foster family, who took care of him while he pursued football, told him not to come back.
I say goodbye to the foster parents. I come home and my parents were like sad, crying, and I'm like, what's wrong? The foster parents don't want you to come back anymore. I'm like, why? Because of who you are. I'm like, what? Yeah, you're difficult to handle, you're very quiet. The kids who were there, it's very difficult to interact. They just find you difficult. Yeah, it's not nice to hear because in the end, I'm just a quiet person, shy person, and that's been given to me as difficult. So in the end, you're like...
For a child, that kind of rejection cuts deep. Kevin packed his bags, went back to his real family, and decided to let his football speak for him. Years later, when he made his debut for Belgium, that same foster family reached out, asking for forgiveness and recognition. De Bruyne didn't respond. He didn't need to. Because by then, the quiet kid they once rejected had become a symbol of brilliance, discipline, and grace. His story isn't about revenge. It's about resilience. A reminder that you don't need to shout to make the world hear you. Zlatan Ibrahimovic has always been known for strength, confidence, and charisma, the lion of football. But even lions have to rest. In 2023, after more than 2 decades of football, Zlatan announced his retirement. The San Siro was full. Fans, teammates, and rivals all standing for one last moment. As he took the microphone, something unexpected happened. Zlatan, the man who never seemed to break, started to cry. Tears streamed down his face as the crowd chanted his name over and over. It wasn't just the end of a career. It was the closing of a chapter written in fire and passion. And when he said, "It's time to say goodbye to football, but not to you," the stadium roared in unity. In that instant, every ego, every rivalry disappeared. All that remained was respect for a man who lived his dream without fear.